Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today I'm going to be talking about Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. So this is the Harper Voyager edition of the book. You can see he's got some beautiful end papers right here. It's got a very nice cover, right? And it's got a few drawings that's scattered throughout the book of key events. Obviously, if you've read the book, you know what I'm some of the pictures that I'm about to show you. But I think the story is, I love it. Here's a fight between Rin and Neza, but I think the story is amazing. I think the way, like, just R.F. Kuang wrote this when she was like 19 years old, which just in and of itself, mind blowing. So between how the cover looks and the first half of the book read, you might think this is like a young adult book. It is not. Please do not read this if you think this is a young adult book. This is like epic fantasy, grimdark. It's about it's a fantasy world set in a fictional place called Nikara. However, it very much mimics China. And so R.F. Kuang herself is Chinese. This is what I imagine is like a easier way of informing Western audiences of Chinese history. And so you have the main character named Rin, who her whole goal is to leave where she is. She's raised by opium smugglers and her life is not great. And so her whole purpose is to get away from there. And the only way that she can do that is to study for this test called the Keju so that she can go to an academy. Now she's poor, so most academies require tuition. The only academy that doesn't is the one called Sinigard. And Sinigard is free, but you have to place in the top two or three of each region to get picked to go to Sinigard. And so she ends up doing it, and her whole time spent there is a combination of good and bad. She's obviously excited to be there and be away from her family, but she has to deal with a lot of racism because she's dark skinned and the people there are light skinned. And so the book is about her journey and overcoming those different obstacles, as well as learning about the Nikara world and what that looks like. Um, she she deals with a lot of adversity in this, and there's definitely a lot of subjects that can be jarring for people. So this I will say this book has a lot of, I would say it comes with trigger warnings, right? There's a lot of very bad things that happen in this book, such as rape, genocide. It's a war book, so there's a lot of murder that happens. She gets very explicit in the ways that people get murdered or tortured. So if you're not into that stuff, you should not read that. I'm not going to say that I'm into it, but I can read it and understand that this a lot of this stuff happened in real life, and so she's not just making up these things. Now there is like a magical system in the world that has to do with shamanism, and so shamans in this world can actually call gods to them. So the gods basically they can pick a host, and there's 64 of them. They all have different attributes that they do. And so there are different gods that go through the different people and act on Earth. Now, the problem is that the shamans usually have to take drugs to do this. And so the popular one is opium or different flavors of it. And that opium lets them communicate with the world of the pantheon, as they call it, and they can bring the powers of the gods with them. Now, over time, what happens is they end up going crazy and they have to be put into this magical mountain that seals them and prevents them from using their abilities. Because over time, they basically lose the human side of them and they basically fully become the god that they summon. And that gives them a lot of power, but it also prevents them from dealing with things in a human like nature. So They lose their care about anybody in the world. They don't really care about anything. They become for example, there's a wind god. Sometimes he will put a light breeze in the earth. Sometimes he will cause a storm. And unfortunately, you never know. You never know what day, what time he's going to do that. And so think people cannot just be let free doing those things. So they get taken in and sealed away. And so there is a magical system with this that obviously is not real life, but a lot of the atrocities that occurred are real life. And so you have to be in the right state of mind to be able to read this. There is a lot of dark stuff. There's a lot of it can seem very hopeless. There's a lot of despair. I'm reading the second book right now. And it doesn't get much better. So just something to think about if you're going to go into this book. The way she writes is amazing, especially for the fact she's 19. It is like amazing. I think there's a lot of divisiveness about this book in like the community in general. It's got a lot of good reviews, and the reviews only go up with each book. But there are a lot of people that like the books and don't like the books. And so I feel like those are the best books to read is when they're divisive. I don't usually use other people's reviews or criticisms of books because I've found that there's books that people don't like that I do like. There's games that people don't like that I do like, and vice versa, right? There's games that people like and I don't like. So I think it makes sense to just go into these things understanding that the book is divisive, but to form your own opinion. The first half of the book is basically like an academy style that's all about exploring the lore. And it's okay. It's pretty standard. I didn't think it was terrible. I haven't read like hundreds of books. So I'm not going to say that it's like a played out trope for me. But it is interesting that it builds it up. And that part, again, also kind of reads like a YA. There is like swearing that kind of gears you towards like thinking there's something more to the book. So they say like, the F word. They'll say like, they'll call each other names. There's a lot of slurs that get thrown around because of the racism that Rin experiences. But the second half of the book just amps everything up like 100%. And again, it's because there's a war that starts happening and you end up having to deal with the realities of war. I will say that the characters I think are really good. I know a lot of people, not a lot, but I know some people hate on Rin as a main character. I'm not going to say she's my favorite main character, but I think it's different, right? Because Rin, she is not the standard main character in that she's about the same age as other main characters, right? Like Corbin is in Faithful and the Fallen, right? Aragon, right? Stuff like that. But I think the reason people don't like her, to me at least, is that she can be kind of mean, she can be rude, she can be selfish. But again, like, just like there are people in the world, not every main character is going to be the same way, right? Especially when you're like a teenager or a young adult, like it doesn't make any sense that would be, that would be the de facto way of being, is to just be an amazing leader, to take charge of everything, right? Rin's not like that. Rin, she is selfish, right? And she has to cope with she prefers to take orders and not give orders. So there's just differences that I think maybe people aren't expecting.